Your supply chain can make or break your business. With Global Trans, you have the advantage of innovative logistics technology, expansive solutions and carrier network, and a partner committed to your success. Global Trans, freight driven by technology.
Welcome to Off the Supply Chain, a show for shippers. If the supply chain is all about cooperative competition, so is our show. We'll bring you compelling perspectives from 3 industry experts. Today we'll be discussing digitization. Does it actually lead to more accuracy, ease, and transparency? Or does it just further complicate our already complicated lives? Is the freight and transportation industry running behind other industries when it comes to digitization, or leading the way? And what does culture have to do with the adoption of digitization in the workplace? These are just a few of the questions we'll be debating on this episode of Off the Supply Chain. Now to our host, Chad Prevost.
Joining us today on Digitization Station, Daniel Pickett leads the FreightWaves data science team, collecting, cleaning, and analyzing freight market data to drive actionable insights into the freight markets. As a Chattanooga City Councilman and a CTO at FreightWaves, Ken Smith oversees project management to ensure efficiency, quality, service, and cost-effective management of resources. And after spending 25 years implementing enterprise software solutions at Fortune 500 companies, Matt McClellan focuses on researching innovation within the supply chain. He serves as Chief Innovation Strategist at Covenant Transport Services. Here are the rules of the game. Each guest gets 40 seconds to respond with a 30-second follow-up. And of course, this is the supply chain show of competitive banter, so we keep score. When you hear this sound, you have 10 seconds. When you hear this sound, you are out of time. This sound means you get a point, and this sound means you lose a point. The unemployment numbers continue to trend down. September's 3.5% unemployment rate is a new 50-year low. When there are fewer people in the talent pool, employers usually pay more to attract the scarce talent. But according to Mad Money host Jim Cramer, this has not happened, and he is extremely surprised by it. Cramer went on to say, quote, "I mean, it's incredible. Automation, digitization, that's what's doing it." Do you agree that automation and digitization are keeping wages down? Pickett, let's start with you.
So I think there's a little bit of truth to that, but it doesn't paint the full picture. Certainly with automation and digitization, you can eliminate certain jobs, you can move jobs overseas, but what that doesn't capture is that we had, since the 70s, we've had a 50% or closer even to a doubling of people going to college, but that growth didn't come in the high demand, the high employable technology, engineering, medicine. It came in a lot of the humanities and social sciences. At the same time, we had probably a 20-year slide in trade schools that's just now reversing. So, there are highly employable industries, there are high-paying jobs out there that can't find people. And we've got people with college degrees working jobs that used to be for teenagers or people in school, like fast food.
Interesting points. What do you think about that, Matt?
Great question. One of my favorite guys, Bill Gates, said we tend to overestimate the amount of change and innovation is going to take place in 2 years and underestimate what's going to take place in the next 10. Right now, I think we have overestimated the amount of the way jobs, automation and artificial intelligence are going to affect jobs. Now, I think that eventually it's going to change. I think eventually that's going to be the reason why unemployment's low, but I just don't see it. I don't think that's the reason for it right now. I think it's a lot more complicated than that. I think there are other factors at play.
Okay, Ken, what do you think? What are these other factors if there are in play?
I think, Chad, one of the things we need to talk about when you talk about digitization and automation and what that brings to the workforce is also flexibility. It brings for a better work-life balance. You have the opportunity to work at home, and when you have an opportunity to work at home or work flex hours, you're willing to take a lower rate as well. So some of those higher tech jobs, if you're looking to see whether or not wages are significantly increasing in those jobs when you're attracting talent, there's a lot of companies that are having to find other ways to attract that talent. It's not just the dollar. It's what are the other things you're going to offer? What are the benefits you're going to provide to some of those employees? And what are the other things that are going to help attract them other than just money alone? Because you can find some of these jobs that have a high salary, but you're not going to be happy getting.
Okay, well, Kramer is saying that the gig economy is shafting people. Is the gig economy good for the economy or bad? What do you think?
No, I think it's great. I think it's great for the economy, but again, it depends on which side of that argument you're on. Because digitization, again, and the gig economy, it is replacing jobs. It's replacing some jobs. So if you're the one getting replaced, clearly you're not going to be as happy as a lot of other people. At the same time, that offers a lot of other opportunities for some of those same people, and then people that didn't have the jobs to begin with, which is why you're seeing kind of that balance.
Okay, Matt, what side of the argument are you on with the gig economy?
I think the gig economy is definitely playing a role, but again, it depends on what jobs are being displaced. You know, I was in the warehouse management business for a long time prior to the role that I'm in now. We managed 30 million square feet of warehouse space. The amount of cost it took to automate those jobs, whether it was automation on the line, artificial intelligence in the decision-making process, those infrastructure investments are expensive. They're really expensive, and right now, I just don't see that playing a role.
What do you think? A lot of factors all at play right here, Pickett. We're talking infrastructure, we're talking like gig economy. What side of the fence are you on?
Yeah, certainly I think the gig economy is disruptive, and there are instances where people maybe are not making great economic decisions in choosing to be a contractor to a large tech company, but that's part of the process. It will work itself out, and we will find equilibrium on what the right rate of pay for those things is.
At the end of one round, it is Daniel Pickett with 6, Matt McClellan with 4, and Ken Smith with 4. Sometimes digitization gets a bad rap, but others say it can actually create greater happiness in the workplace. Digitization can help keep companies small, which means cutting down on red tape and endless processes and procedures, as well as creating new ways to communicate more effectively. Do you think digitization will lead to greater happiness in the workplace? Matt, let's start with you.
Absolutely. You know, digitization, Chad, is analog to digital. So getting rid of fax machines, getting rid of printers, converting paper documents to PDF, making them into something that's searchable and easy to find, executing contracts electronically instead of paper. These are all jobs that people just don't want to do. They're very paper-based, they're very manual. Automation of those jobs through digitization is absolutely a good thing, and it's going to make people happier.
Okay, what do you think, Ken?
I think it definitely will help in the workplace in making people happier. I mean, you get rid of a lot of these things that people just don't want to have to deal with. Nobody wants a desk stacked up with papers. However, maybe nobody's the wrong term. I do know some people that still like to print out an entire website in order to do edits instead of using the tools that have been provided, which was taking paper and putting it in a digital format on a website. So there are still people that are going to push back, but in all, I think for a workforce that needs to be more consolidated and be able to work on the same thing from multiple angles, you have to get to this digitization to do the job better.
It also improves our ability to communicate. What do you think, Pickett?
Yeah, I think that it's really a double-edged sword. In some ways, it makes things easier. I've got access to all human information right here in my pocket, and that means that I can make it to a kid's soccer game, but then be online working later at night when they go to bed. That's great in some ways. It can be bad though, because it also means that you can be tethered to work at all hours of the day. And that can be a creep. So the bottom line is that I think you have to learn how to manage it. You have to learn how to both work from where you are, but also how to be here now when you need to be somewhere else, and and then how to de-stress when that work follows you around.
What do you think that digitization leads to more happiness for consumers, not just the people in the workplace, but actual consumers?
I think consumers certainly have appreciated the get it now, the frictionless experience, the kind of seamlessness of things. Now, Version 1.0 is always bumpy. If you think about the self-checkout lines, they were awful. Put it in the bag, put it back on the scanner, put it back in the bag, put it back on the scanner. And now they're pretty good. I think as it goes along, the early adopters take some bumps on the knee for the rest of us, but overall, yes, I think that it does make people happier.
What do you think, Ken? Do you think happier for consumers?
Absolutely. I think the way that we are today with the on-demand world, as soon as I hit order, I want an email that says, here's your order. I want to have that immediate notification. I don't want to look in the mail 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 days later to get my information. So yes, digitalization is not just something that consumers appreciate, it's something that consumers demand. This is something they expect from everywhere that they go. It's not just whether you're dealing with something online. Everywhere you go, people expect instant information and access.
It also can mean a lot of data being gathered on us, but what do you think, Matt? Happier for consumers?
Oh yeah, Chad, you and I have talked about this. I'm one of these van life people, right? I have a 56 square foot van that I spend time in. You gotta learn to do more with less. So this minimalism thing that I've got going on, I have at home gotten rid of all my photographs, I've scanned them to digital. I've gotten rid of all my CDs, I've scanned them to MP3s. I've gotten rid of all the VHS tapes, I've converted them to digital files. I have so much less clutter because of digitization. Absolutely, as a consumer, I'm excited about it.
After round 2, Daniel Pickett with 11, Matt McClellan with 9, and Ken Smith with 9. Everyone will say that they want their product delivered faster, cheaper, and with greater accuracy. In the final assessment, though, it's not always easy to get companies to cooperate. One of the biggest challenges to digitization is to get companies to cooperate when it comes to the sharing of information. What are some of the biggest stumbling blocks when it comes to integrating a digital supply chain? Ken Smith.
Well, Chad, a lot of that comes to problems anyways when you're trying to get to that point is people don't want to share their information. People think that the more you let out, the more somebody else is going to catch up and do the same thing that you're doing. So a lot of it's a competitive issue. But when you're dealing with a real supply chain beginning to end, and that consumer is the person that has to be happy at the end of the day. Everybody else ideally is happy along the way, but if that consumer's not happy, you're not selling any product, you're not selling any services, you're not actually delivering what you're supposed to. So you have to remain focused on doing a better supply chain, making sure that they have the information immediately available when they need it, and it's transparent enough that they know where the product's coming from and exactly when they're gonna get it.
Yeah, that is true. What do you think, Matt?
Chad, I think it's about open standards or lack of open standards. As a carrier, we have a TMS system that tells us where the trucks are, tells us when they're gonna get there, tells us when they're gonna be late, tells them when they'll be on time. If we could communicate in real time with our customers and tell them that, hey, we got a truck running early, unfortunately we got a truck running late, that would allow them to completely rejuggle their entire schedule for the way they're receiving the next 50 or 100 trucks for that day. Because we can't communicate them with all the time with an open standard, we're unable to really sort of have that back and forth that I think is necessary in order for everybody's expectations to be met.
Pickett, what do you think?
Lack of open standards is definitely an issue. You have companies that run the different software and they're competing and they don't want to cooperate and they don't want it to make it easy to change software vendors. You have different countries that have different standards as you move things globally through the supply chain.
Yeah.
And then even all the different companies have different ways of describing things and doing things. So that lack of standards that Matt mentioned is a very real issue. Not only that, you really have kind of companies want to have that secret sauce, as Ken mentioned, that I want to know everybody else's stuff, but I don't want my stuff to be public, and that's an issue.
Point to Ken, point to Matt.
I'm giving away here.
Good points. Have the promises, Pickett, of digitization overpromised and under-delivered?
I don't think that's necessarily true. I think that the customer kind of sees this pretty facade of everything's moving and the truck is on its way, and behind the scenes you do have a lot of humans and manual error correction, exception handling to sort of put that pretty dashboard up for the consumer. We are now starting to fix that back office, and there are great visibility products out there that are starting to sort of become de facto standards and get us to maybe the back office being as synchronized as it appears to be as a consumer.
So what do you think, Matt? Overpromised and under-delivered?
You know, Chad, I think it's case by case. You know, look at RFID and what Walmart wanted us to do whenever it was 7-10 years ago. They wanted all of their suppliers to be RFID compliant. That lasted about 6 days, it seemed like. It just never came to be. And you know, the history of technology is littered with examples like that. I personally believe blockchain is another one of those that has been overpromised and underdelivered. I think there are several other technologies. You know, we could go into if we had time. I think machine learning and deep learning, and a lot of these words are used a lot and without a whole lot of context around it.
We have a tie. It is Daniel Pickett with 15, Matt McClellan with 15, and Ken Smith with 15. Organizations need to move away from simply digitization and move towards digitalization. Digitalization is a fad or a trend. Why or why not, Pickett?
The concept that we're going to continue to reduce friction is absolutely a trend. It's never going to end. As everybody in the workforce becomes a digital native, we're not going to call it digitalization. We're going to have been born that way.
Okay, good points. What do you think, Matt?
You know, Chad, I think digitalization is the word. I think that's really what we're working towards right now. For example, at Covenant, we are about to test a product from a company called Idyllic. We met them in an accelerator with Dynamo here just a couple months ago. Idyllic's role is to predict driver accidents before they happen.
Okay, Ken, what do you think?
I don't think it's just a trend. I think it's an absolute requirement. It is a necessity. Everybody out there is working towards this, and it is going to be something that is expected more and more and more as we go, and it's going to become the norm, so it can't just be a trend.
All right, a company that embraces the digital future and really gets it uses crowdsourcing and social media to allow its community to propose improvements and to vote for their favorites. Fad or a trend, why or why not, Matt?
Fad for companies like us. Probably a great idea for companies like Facebook and Instagram. I really don't see our major TMS provider creating a new feature set because of some complaint I made on Twitter.
Okay, so a little bit of both and. What do you think, Ken?
I think it depends on whether you're talking about the end consumer or whether you're talking about a company that's involved in complete supply chain. Because again, the end consumer can drive and can kill a company on social media. So you do have to be mindful of what is being said and how it's being said, but I don't know that it's necessarily going to change the supply chain.
Okay, I'm not sure whether that was a fad or a trend. What do you think, Pickett?
Crowdsourcing, I think, has probably had its heyday. It won't go away, but going forward, I think that, you know, as Henry Ford said, if I'd asked the people what they wanted, they would have said a faster horse. So, you know, longer term, there's always going to be a place for innovators.
Companies are coming under pressure to expand their vendor base, and it is coming not just from users, but from the fact that companies must adapt their business models to meet new digital expectations. Fad or trend? Why or why not, Ken?
Definitely a trend right now, Chad. I mean, that's what we're seeing more and more of. Even you take a company like Amazon, they have massive warehouses, but they're not just Amazon products. They are constantly adding more vendors and more stock and more products that they can offer on their platform to keep anybody else from being able to break in and compete with them.
What do you think, Pickett?
I'm going to say fad here, and it's really because this hiring vendors is a function of companies that don't have the digital DNA trying to catch up and trying to buy their way into the race. The companies that are really going to win long term are the ones that have digitalization and have forward thinking in their DNA.
What do you think, Matt? Final word.
You know, the trucking business that I'm in, I'm constantly looking at new vendors for the trucks, people that are providing things aftermarket, that are doing things the original manufacturers are not providing. Electric APUs, trailer skirts, all kinds of things that are saving us money for the fleet.
At the end of our show, the final score is Daniel Pickett with 20, Matt McClellan with 21, Ken Smith with 20. What a competitive round. We have never had a game in which all three contestants broke 20.
Thank you, Vanna.
Congratulations, Matt, on your inaugural
Is this a gold
appearance.
supply chain?
Yes.
That is the
Congratulations.
The standard.
What are you going to do
I
as
need
the
a
champion of the week?
FreightWaves. I need a FreightWaves amulet.
We could probably make that happen.
Can we make that
Wow,
happen?
that's not enough, huh? Okay.
You did have great donuts.
Oh, thank you. What are you going to do as the champion of the week?
My wife is going to wonder why I have nicer jewelry than she does.
Okay, that's what we like to hear here on Off the Supply Chain. Thanks for tuning in to Digitization Station. We'll see you next week.
Join us next week on Off the Supply Chain as FreightWaves Editor-at-Large John Kingston, VP of Carrier Profitability Chris Henry, and Chief Insight Officer Dean Croak have a lively discussion about infrastructure. See you next Friday.
Global Trans offers a full suite of solutions around logistics, supply chain, and transportation.
Technology is what we do. Global Trans is bringing the trucking industry into the 21st century. From a small family-run business to now almost $1 billion company. We did that all together as a team, and we're bringing the people, processes, and software together.
When I joined the company 3 years ago, I was attracted to the high growth and fast-paced environment, but I'm proud to say that we still have that nimble entrepreneurial spirit.
As a leader in logistics technology, our platform allows us to serve any market, any mode, at any time. We're at the forefront of the logistics market.
Our teams will always find a way to adapt to the best possible solution to service our customers.
Our team is here for our customers, literally 24/7 by 365, because we need to be, and we'll get it done anytime, anywhere. We have a very competitive team, and that's what we really enjoy doing.
Our mantra is simple: we are the future of freight.